Willie or a Sam.
No, sir.
I'm a eighth old man, I'm Henry. Henry the eighth I am.
Hi, my name is Angel. The film that we're here to talk to you about is a film called To Serve a False King, also known as the story of a boy and his crown and what he'll do to keep it. The story is a script that I've written. I've been working on it since early 2011. The story is about a boy named Anthony. He's 15 years old in high school, and his world has recently started to be turned upside down. His mother's recently gotten divorced. He has recently started developing feelings for his best friend's twin sister, and his mother's recently started changing. Wearing her hair differently, her clothes differently, her attitude is completely changing, and she's recently started dating a new man. Anthony can't handle this. And so in order to deal with his problems, he retreats into very lucid daydreams, the trigger for which is a toy castle and handmade figurines that he keeps in a loose floorboard in his room. In his daydreams, he imagines himself king of a very vast kingdom. The more his mom changes in real life, the closer she comes to death in his daydreams until he takes power. His best friend Christopher and his twin sister Sophia each are Merlin-like characters, where he is more of a King Arthur character. And so there are parallels to Arthurian legends in the story. Eventually, Anthony's life becomes so unbearable, he permanently retreats into his daydreams. Towards the end of the second act, he can no longer tell what is reality and what is fantasy. And the themes that I'm playing with in the story are classic fantasy themes of order and chaos, trying to keep order in a world that is constantly changing. And this is a classic fantasy trope that has been played many times. Anthony has to learn that the world is going to change around him. He cannot stay in stasis. He cannot let things change around him and he stays the same. He will get left behind, and he will be miserable for it. His mother's changing, his relationship with his friends is changing, and he needs to be able to deal with this. Now, one of the things that makes this story unique is the element of high fantasy that's introduced. I could have written the story to have Anthony deal with his problems all in the real world. But I'm dealing with a character who's very, very creative, whose imagination is so vivid, and I wanted to really take advantage of that. So instead of just showing him playing with the dolls, I wanted to retreat into his mind and personify everything. I wanted to show on screen exactly what he sees in his head, exactly how he parallels everything in his mind to the real world, and vice versa. The story is solid. I spent a year working on the story. I will go into 2012 continuing to work on the story, getting advice from several colleagues of mine, several other writers who are really good friends of mine, who I know will give me their honest opinion. I spent a lot of time writing the story, a lot of time workshopping the story, and I know that by the time I'm in script block, I will have a very solid story that deserves to be adapted to the screen.
I got married to the widow next door. She's been married 7 times before, and everyone was an Henry. She wouldn't have a Willie or a Sam.
No, sir.
I'm a eighth old man, I'm Henry. Henry the eighth I am.
Oh, hi, I'm Ian Blair, and I'm assuming the role of producer on this film. In order to captivate millions with this film and draw its intended demographic, it's going to need to have a killer production value. Which is why we're going all out with this project. And we won't even start production until we have the backers to make it a visual masterpiece. We have figured out that we're going to spend 4 months on pre-production for finalizing the script, setting the final budget, as well as location scouting, which is a major aspect of this film. The story is already very well developed, and the screenplay is half written. So as soon as we get a draft we like, we're going to approach directors such as Spike Jonze, director of Where the Wild Things Are, Wolfgang Peterson, director of Troy, Andrew Adamson, director of Chronicles of Narnia, as well as other directors who we see fit, who bring value and credibility to our project, and help potential investors to become more confident in our film. False King is an ambitious screenplay with several exotic locations, as well as set construction, and CGI to account for. So I've allotted 7 months for shooting. The bulk of the time is going to be spent filming the kingdom, because it's going to be a crazy but worthwhile company move to France or the English countryside. Because we need to find a place with an old castle that will be worthy of our picture.
Gérard Depardieu.
Baguette. Baguette.
Biggest challenge is we aren't going to be able to shoot anything consecutively because there's such an extravagant change between Anthony's dream kingdom and his normal life. So I've scheduled all the on-location kingdom scenes to be shot together, followed by the soundstage kingdom scenes. The thing is, we were planning on shooting this movie on 35mm film, but when we accounted for this in budget, we went over our $5 million, which drove the cost of the entire production way up. It became unjustified because aside from the added cost of film and processing itself, it raised our SAG wages because our film was in a new budget bracket. It was no good. This screenplay is original and free of pop culture references, and because it takes place mostly in another reality, we won't have problems with product lawsuits. Also, because of its nature, it will require a completely original score, so we don't need to clear existing music. Insurance, however, could be a large expense as we are shooting internationally, and we have to fork out the money for international production insurance. Yeah, baby. We've also decided to become a union production and use SAG actors because we thought it would be easier to harvest more seasoned professionals that way. As the producer, I would have loved to get as close to my goal as possible, but there were a few things that we were willing to sacrifice in order to keep the production value high. And one of those things was shooting on 35mm film. Because we sacrificed this, we were able to afford the locations and sets that keep it interesting and visually orgasmic.
Some of this is legend, but at least this much is fact. When rioting citizens of France destroyed the Bastille, they discovered within its records this mysterious entry. Prisoner number 64389,000. The man in the iron mask.
Your Majesty, there are riots in Paris.
But Paris is the most beautiful city in the world. Why should my people feel anything but pride and contentment? I am a young king, but I am king.
Then be a good king.
Why do you follow him, D'Artagnan? Why? What we fought for is greater than king or rank or reward.
You cannot ask me to betray my king. What do you propose to do?
Replace the king.
I cannot listen to this.
It can't be done. It can. I know the way.
Athos is gone. Porthos and Aramis are missing too.
Then we need not seek them out. They will find us.
Not if you find them first. Why was this done to me?
You don't know.
I was summoned to a rear door of the palace. The Queen had given birth to twins that night. We will replace Louis with Philippe.
D'Artagnan, you will hunt down Porthos, Athos, and Aramis and bring me their heads, or I will have yours.
If we fail in this attempt, I'll be honored to die beside you.
I got married to the widow next door. She's been married 7 times before, and everyone was an Henry. She wouldn't have a Willie or a Sam. No, Sam. I'm her 8th old man, I'm Henry. Henry the 8th I am.
Hi, my name is Richard, and I'm here today to talk to you about financing for To Serve a False King. To Serve a False King, as you already know, is a piece set in medieval times.
You ever been to medieval times? It's crazy, the fights are sick, and the chicken's delicious. But this movie's even better than that.
As well as in our current world, where our main character is constantly stuck between reality and what he portrays as reality, but is actually fantasy. Because of this, we wanted to have two really key locations for the movie, and we decided that these were kind of no-compromise locations where we didn't want to use a different location, and we definitely wanted to kind of capture the essence of where we were shooting. Because of that, we made our budget to be $5 million, and that budget really helps us account for a lot of the traveling expenses that our cast and crew are going to incur. The first location that we had in mind was the University of Southern California. It's a gorgeous college campus, and it has one of the most finest architectures in the world. We wanted to use this location to really do the majority of our shoot, where we're going to be spending at least 6 months in Los Angeles with our production. The second location that we really had our eyes on is actually halfway around the world. It is a castle that we found to be one of the most beautiful things we'd ever seen.
Bœuf, soupe de jour, camembert, Jacques Cousteau, baguette, Berger, bonjour, Berger, bonjour monsieur, bonjour mon petit perro de chien.
It's been featured in movies such as The Man with the Iron Mask, and it's recently been shown off in BBC's fantastic series Merlin. It is the Château du Pierrefonds, and it's located in France. Round-trip tickets to France are not very cheap, they're pretty expensive, and that's kind of one of the main reasons why we wrote our budget to be pretty high.
And everyone was an Henry. She wouldn't have a Willie or a Sam. No, Sam. I'm her eighth old man, I'm Henry. Henry the eighth I am.
Hi, I'm Naomi, and I'm very excited to show you the world's greatest attractions. An ancient and luxurious medieval castle lies in the northern commune of Compiègne, France. The stunning Chateau Pierrefonds, standing today, was built in the late 14th century and has seen many eras of demolition and reconstruction. A significant low point in the castle's history was during Louis XIII's reign, when the manor was met with extensive destruction. Shortly after, in 1810, the castle was bought by Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte for the exceptionally low price of 3,000 francs. As a result of this purchase, restorations began on Pierrefonds, which continued until the late 19th century. This medieval romantic-style castle is now a popular museum in which visitors can tour the castle's impressive architecture and lavish interior. Thank you for watching our travel video series. See you next time.
One of the also really amazing things of shooting in France is that they are able to offer a 20% tax write-off for our production for a maximum of $5.4 million. We're going to be able to recoup pretty much $1 million in our production costs because we're shooting in France, and to really help that out, we knew that we needed to meet a certain amount of criteria. We had to make sure that our film was not only prominently featuring French locations and French locale, but we also had to be able to kind of generate and kind of cultivate the French culture within our film. And we feel that by hiring a lot of our extras, in France, with using a lot of cast and crew that we find there, we're going to really be able to make the most out of our money, and we're going to be able to really get the most out of shooting there. We decided that we wanted to pursue private equity for our investments in this film, and the reason why we wanted to do so is because we wanted to approach hedge funds and ask them to invest in our ideas. And one of the best things about a hedge fund is that they usually have this very unique group of investors. They don't necessarily determine success based on how much money our film has made, but they rather invest in our films for the emotional reasons, such as whether an investor's son is going to be in a film or if their mother-in-law has co-wrote the script. And we think that appealing to the emotional heartstrings of these investors is really going to help us raise a lot of money in quite a not so unorthodox approach, but something that is commonly ignored and overlooked at today. Another one of the big benefits to shooting in France, because of that 20% write-off that we're able to obtain, we are able to minimize our risk of losses by a whole $1 million, and that's a really big thing when appealing to any investors out there. One thing to note is that when we're shooting in Los Angeles, we're only going to be using the USC campus for just a little bit of time, and the benefit to that is that we're going to be able to cut a lot of financial costs on our budget and really maximize our efforts. Two of the locations that we're also going to be using in LA are a local residence, which takes up the majority of the time in the film, and the other location is going to be a high school where we're really able to use their student body as background actors to really help our costs.
I got married to the widow next door. She's been married 7 times before, and everyone was an Henry. She wouldn't have a Willie or a Sam. No, Sam. I'm her 8th old man, I'm Henry. Henry the 8th I am.
Hi, I'm Madison. I'm going to be going over the marketing and distributing for To Serve a False King. Audience-wise, this thing is a gold mine. Not only does it appeal to a younger audience, but also Dungeons & Dragons fans, Magic the Gathering fans, and through the imagery and narrative storytelling, video game fans. And everyone knows those things are hot right now. So basically we're looking at under 30 market. But besides that, parents are still going to take their kids to this film. And on the big screen it's not just going to be medieval fighting and sorcery. In the core of the story, it's about family values. And parents are really going to enjoy that. And God knows parents talk all the time. And so word's going to spread that this PG-13 rated film is one that they can take the whole family out to. Although this project is a big budget film, the studio we're with might not have distribution. Although, through life lessons, character development, action, and story plot, I think this film appeals to a broad enough audience that no matter what, there'll be someone who's interested in distributing it, as well as going to see it. I truly believe that this film has a wide enough audience that will justify a worldwide release. We'll appropriate our trailer to fit all the markets I mentioned before, and put it on high traffic websites, such as IMDb Pro, Apple's trailers, and even Facebook. We'll also do other marketing campaigns, including our own high-res website. That will include maybe an online game to get youngsters and gamers interested and excited about our film. We'll also release high concept posters, that we'll post all around the internet for first, and then soon we paste all over national cities. As mentioned before, this is a high budget family film. It's not going to do the festival tour that most indie films do. But we will try to enter it in non-competition to some of the bigger festivals all around the world, try to create some buzz, such as Sundance, South by Southwest, the London Film Festival, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Toronto, etc., etc. Just to kind of create some hype and hopefully get a buzz going, as I mentioned. Once we find a distributor, or even if we don't, we'll take this thing on the road, hitting all the major cities across the United States, creating something completely personal and different to the audience. We'll have a Q&A with the writer and director. We'll have a performance by the cast from the film, a screening of the film itself, as well as music played by the band or DJ who did the score for the film throughout the whole night. We need to create something that people aren't just going to download at home while they sit in their cupboards, waiting in bed for something else to do. This is going to be totally different. It's going to really engage the audience and make them want to come out to see the film. And it's going to be something that they remember for years to come. The To Serve a False King tour is going to be very reminiscent of 60s and 70s surf and horror films, where they went out and made their audience watch their film. Even today, shows like Yo Gabba Gabba are playing sold out performances all over the United States. It's just something that we're going to have to do, and that most films are going to have to start doing in order to gain an audience in this day and age. Tour will hopefully generate some buzz. From there, we'll do a wide release, theater, and same day on demand release. After that, DVD, Blu-ray, Netflix, Hulu. Following that, television syndication, and hopefully new medias, such as maybe a video game or action figures designed towards the film. Something that might even create a franchise.
Où est la piscine?
Pas dans moi.
Où est la piscine?
Splish
splash.
Oh, je ne comprends pas.
Parlez-vous le français? Parlez-vous le français?
Non.
Fa fa fa